Crimson Desert has now been out for exactly 1 month, and honestly this game has had one of the most strangest journeys I've seen in a game for a long time. Originally announced back in 2019 as an MMO, it slowly evolved into a single-player action-adventure game, went through years of delays, and finally released this year in March of 2026. I personally started following Crimson Desert around late 2022, and back then I generally had no idea what this game was supposed to be. You see trailers, bits of gameplay, screenshots, but nothing really clarified what this game actually was. Now true, in 2024 we did get quite more videos and screenshots and deep dives into the game, but I didn't really know where it was going towards. It looked ambitious, sure, but it didn't really have a clear identity, and I remember asking myself, is this an RPG? Is it a Souls-like? Is it some kind of sandbox? It felt like it was trying to be everything at once, and because of that I actually stopped following it for a while. Especially as during this time we were having games that were being promised by studios to be this next big thing, and then it being released and you basically see that it was completely not as it was promised in the trailers, and that it ended up being more of a scam than a release. So that's why I stopped following it for a while. But then 2023 came by and we finally started seeing proper gameplay, and that's when things changed. That's when the world, the scale, and especially the sense of adventure really started to show. From that point on, I was hooked. Going into launch, expectations were all over the place. The trailers showed massive boss fights, cinematic combat, and huge environments, so naturally people started comparing it to games like Dark Souls or expecting a full RPG experience such as The Witcher or Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. But after actually playing it, that's not really what Crimson Desert is. Yes, it has its RPG elements and you have progression, systems and choices, but at its core, this is a pure action adventure game, and honestly that's where it shines the most. The focus isn't on punishing combat or deep character builds, it's on exploration, world interaction, and the feeling of going onto a journey. And that journey really comes to life through the world. The game is set across 5 major regions across the continent of Pywell. There's Hernand, Payloon, Demonis, and Delasia, and the Crimson Desert, of course. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say this, but I spent 70 to 80 hours in Hernand alone, to the point where me and others kind of joked around Reddit that the game should have just been called Hernand instead of Crimson Desert. I did explore outside of it, like Payloon, which is this really strong Nordic, almost Viking style atmosphere where you have like a small city that is built across a riverside with these nice Viking-esque atmosphere. But even now, over 100 hours into the game, there are still entire regions I haven't fully explored yet, and that's one of the things that really stood out to me. Just how much there is to do, to the point where it kind of feels overwhelming. There are around 75 bosses, hundreds of quests, and so many systems layered on top of each other. In a lot of ways it actually reminds me of that feeling of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Not in terms of combat or mechanics, but in how it throws you into a world and lets you get lost in it. You can pick a direction, start doing something small, and suddenly you're hours deep into something completely different from your main intention. And that same sense of freedom and distraction is very present here. But what really sold me on the game wasn't just the scale, it was how alive the world feels. There were moments where I'd finish a quest, ride off on my horse, and then out of nowhere someone just come up to thank me. Sometimes they even give me something in return. Or you'd be traveling and notice a note posted somewhere talking about how some certain menace or threat has been dealt with, and you realize that it was something you did earlier. It's the small things like that, but it makes the world feel reactive, like your actions actually matter. Now, of course, this isn't a choices game, but it actually feels like these little things that you've done, or these big things that you've done, actually have a meaning, and that sense of immersion into the game. Now, let's talk about the story.
Gian has fallen, and with the great leader's death, our land, Payloon, once unified, has been plunged into chaos. And now, a bloody battle unfolds between the Greymanes, who fight to uphold his will, and the Black Bear forces that seek to set it aflame.
Because I think it's important to be honest here. The story itself isn't the main selling point of this game. That doesn't mean it's bad. It definitely has its moments, and there were times where I was genuinely interested in what was going on, but overall it feels like something that supports the world rather than drives it. In a nutshell, you play as Cliff, a character who gets killed early on by the leader of the Black Bears, and then gets brought back to life. Now, why he's brought back, and at least from where I am in the game so far, it isn't fully expanded on yet, and I am around halfway through the game. It's there, it is hinted at, but it's not something that's been fully explained, or at least not up to chapter 8 or 9 where I currently am. You do get a bit of background from just reading the notes that you get in the game, or just reading in its glossary about backstories about some bosses, or some backstories about the faction, or whatever brought you back to life. But in the actual story itself, I don't see that it actually gets expressed the way it should have. From there, your main goal is to then rebuild the Greymane faction that has been kind of broken apart from said Black Bears. And this is where the game becomes a lot more interesting, because the story naturally leads you into one of the game's more core systems, which is your camp. You're not just following a narrative, you're actively rebuilding something in this case. So you start small, bringing people back into your faction, setting up your camp, in your case you do some mini chores just to rebuild the camp, and you recruit people, send them on missions, gather resources like wood and stone, and build up your infrastructure and your gold more importantly. There's even a trading system where you can move goods between regions depending on the market demand, which changes week to week in the game. And honestly, this is where the game really shines for me, because even if the story itself isn't the strongest part, the feeling of rebuilding something, or of growing your faction in this case, is where it really hits the heart to me. It kind of gives you that idea, or that sense that you get from other games, kind of like Crusader King's Tree in a way, where you're kind of building and making a mark on the land, and that really is nice. Now, one thing I really liked and also struggled with is the way the game handles navigation. The minimap isn't GTA style where it draws a line exactly and tells you where to go. Instead, it shows you a direction and distance, and that's it. And at first it might feel strange, but over time it creates a really strong sense of exploration. You're not following a line, but you're actually reading the world. But that design choice can also backfire for some people. There are some people that might actually come from a sense of that they like the sense of hand-holding, where you're playing games and they have this yellow paint that tells you, hey, jump on this box specifically to get to the item that you want to get. And that's where it kind of separates the player base in that case. But for me and for some others, I actually do like that system, but I did have a moment where I completely missed the main location. That was when I think I was looking for the Scholar Institute, I think it was on a hill, simply because I haven't explored that area yet, and because of that, I've missed out on a key ability that would have helped me find better loot, and I didn't realize this about 10 hours later, so I had to go back and specifically find that location just to unlock the skill. And this ties into another system in the game that it has, which is really cool. In Crimson Desert, you can learn through the world. So you don't unlock abilities from menus, you just unlock these abilities by inspecting, by looking around. So you learn by chopping trees, fishing, exploring constellations, and interacting with the environment itself. So you can see a guy fishing, you look at him, and by looking at him, you learn the way how to fish. So even though that moment was frustrating with the whole having to go back to learn that skill, because I went into a more beaten up path, it also made the game feel a bit more immersive in a sense, because you're discovering things that not are just being handed to you. Now, to be fair, don't expect something like a full NPC day-night cycle, since I mentioned there is immersion in this game. There isn't a full NPC day-night cycle. That level of simulation isn't really there, but the game makes up for it in other ways. Another thing I want to talk about is combat.
Got guts, I'll give you that!
because it's actually one of the more interesting parts of the game, and for some it could actually be the most interesting part of the game. On the surface, combat can feel simple. You can technically hold one button and let the game do most of the work. I played this on controller. I just held, I think, the right bumper and the guy was automatically fighting, but if you actually invest into it, there's a lot of depth in there. Cliff has a wide range of skills and combos, abilities, and once you start experimenting, combat becomes very expressive. You can chain attacks, mix abilities, and even use the environment like breaking down trees and using them as weapons mid-fight. I also really love the environmental distraction in there. Combined with that, Cliff has a more aggressive, almost dirty fighting style, and it stops feeling like a structured combat form. It becomes more free, almost like Bruce Lee's mentality, where combat becomes the expression in a sense. Something else is worth mentioning, and it is kind of funny, is that you don't only get to play as Cliff. There are other playable characters like I might be butchering this one, but Daymane and Onka. And I'm gonna be completely honest, over 100 hours in the game, I haven't really played them properly yet. And yes, that is after 100 hours, so that can kind of give you a bit of an idea. There is some cases where they are tied into a main quest where you only have to... As of now, Cliff cannot use guns, and I do know that Onka uses like a cannon as a special ability, which is cool. One issue people pointed out early about that was that these characters couldn't interact with puzzles the same way Cliff could, since he has those abyss abilities. But this is something that the developers have seen and already started fixing. It is part of a roadmap that they're working on for the next few months about new features and things to fix upon, and this is one of them, and they already started patching it as the making of this video. So that's really nice to see. It allows us characters to basically interact more with the world and its puzzles and make them feel more as one, instead of more of just a separation, abilities that Cliff has. But that being said, the combat isn't perfect. One issue I noticed is the difficulty scaling, that it feels inconsistent. You can fight one boss that feels easy. I literally had a case where I demolished the boss within 30 seconds, and then suddenly the next one becomes a massive spike that takes you endless of turns and replays just to defeat him. I had this one main story boss with lightning abilities, and that fight was absolutely rough. Normally I run the game at 100 FPS, and I'm mentioning this because during this fight we were in this kind of room, and there was so much particles and effects going on that my FPS tanked hard. And there were so many things happening at once. All my performance has been dropping, and it honestly just made the fight feel more like a slideshow than an actual fight. And in that case, I had to cheese it just to win. And I'm not just mentioning because of the performance, but he had so many quick fights and quick attacks that it was really difficult to dodge them. But thankfully the performance in the game is good. It's just in this one case where both the difficulty scaling and the performance, it really screwed me over. But yeah, to be fair with you guys, difficulty settings are coming as well as a part of this roadmap, so that might improve. There's going to be an easy, normal, and hard difficulty. So yippee! So while mentioning performance, actually, another thing to talk about is the Black Space engine, and honestly, it shows that this isn't a off-the-shelf engine like Unreal Engine, but it's something that Pearl Abyss built specifically for this vision. The scale and the draw distance, the way the world streams is genuinely really impressive. You can stand in her end and see parts of the Crimson Desert far in the distance if you get like high up in a mountain or something. And that level of scale isn't really that easy to achieve. But it isn't perfect either, because there is some cases where there's popping. But overall, it's really impressive. It's just maybe like when you're going on a horse and you may see like a couple of pebbles out of nowhere just pop in, or maybe at the worst case, a person pops in out of nowhere, but it really shows. And the day-night cycle, the trees moving with wind, the dynamic weather effects, the way the puddles remain there after a heavy storm is absolutely beautiful. And even the water effects. The water effects in some areas can feel pretty shitty, but also in some areas it feels so dynamic, and that's really where Pearl Abyss really stands out. That this doesn't feel like a game that was meant to be launched and then they just move on. It's honestly, it's been a long-term project for them, and not only that, but in just 1 month they already pushed multiple updates. I think 4 as the making of this video. There might have been another one as I'm recording this. And it just fixes systems, improving features, and actually even adding funny features and responding to feedback. And that's what really stands out, which is the speed. We're talking about major fixes, like for example the storage issue. That was one massive issue that there was, that was fixed within weeks. Like the temporary fix at the time was just, hey, do these fetch quests and side quests and you'll get an inventory expansion by 3 bars, and you can move on from there. And I don't want to throw shade here, but if you compare that to studios like Bethesda, sometimes they could take them months, even up to a year, just to fix major issues. And instead, a lot of that falls onto the modding community, where Bethesda's like, hey, we need to keep this game going on like 15 years later, and let's just let the players fix our issues, and it's not really a bad thing, I guess. It just shows a different of approach onto things, but I just really like the way, and honestly, it's pretty crazy to see that a development studio can actually fix, in some cases, they could be game-breaking issues within a week. So with that, Prolibus, bravo, it feels like they've actively involved themselves into that, and they're listening, they're patching, and they're evolving the game in real time. So after 1 month, where does Crimson Desert stand? It's not what some people expected, but that doesn't mean it makes it a bad game. If you're looking for a Souls-like, this is not that game. If you're looking for a deep RPG, it's not fully that either. And if you're looking for a fully immersive storytelling game, kind of like KCD2, it's not that either. But if you want something that is a massive open world with a strong sense of adventure and a game you could sink hundreds of hours into, to only say after the end of it, hey, what is that thing sticking out in a rainforest? What is there? What can I see? That is where Crimson Desert delivers. And honestly, even just going around and building up your, what I like to call it, the encyclopedia of animals and locations. There are over 400 creatures in this game that are absolutely stunning. Beautiful creatures that you just walk around, from like giant lizards to beautiful horses, goats, sheep. What else? Recently I found an alligator, and these mythical creatures that you find in there that I don't really want to spoil. And that honestly makes the world lived in, and that is something that I recommend that you guys check out for yourself. And honestly, with how the game's being supported by the developers, this game's only going to get better. And this was more of a general review in a sense, more than a really in-depth type of video, because I could spend most likely a day or maybe even 2 days just covering the amount of things that I saw in this game, but I don't want to spoil too much, and I hope this video, where it might have shown some main quest things, I hope it didn't spoil too much things for you either, because I know there are some folks that are still hesitant to get this game, or just about to buy it a month later, as they were most likely waiting to see how patches might fix the game, because this game went from, in 1 week from 65% mixed reviews on Steam up to 85, and now it's at 86% after a couple of weeks. Is honestly a really quick redemption for a game, so I can completely understand that. And please look at this video as that sense of just as a general overview of this game, because there is so much and so many systems that I even got to experience 40 hours, 50 hours within the game, and that's not making stuff up. I discovered a farming feature 50 hours in while playing the game. But yeah, that's really it. Let me know what you guys think after 1 month of Crimson Desert being launched. I, for one, think that this is the game of the year for me. This is the game that I've been thinking of as a kid. That is the closest I can get to that vision that I had, of that imagination of getting your person lost into this game world. It is absolutely beautiful. And even though, yes, there are issues, no game is perfect. But for me, this game is finally, what I can say, my favorite game of all time so far. So bravo to Pearl Abyss, and bravo to the beautiful creation of this engine. and to the developers for their very steadfast patching cycle. And yeah, if you guys like this video, please do like, favorite, and subscribe. It honestly feels really weird that after 3 years I am back making a video, but Crimson Desert honestly made me want to make a video about it, and that is not something that I've been wanting to do as of recent. I have been a bit inactive on this channel, but am I going to continue? We shall see. I might have a few things planned and lined up, so I am excited to see where that goes, but yeah. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one, whatever that is. Bye bye, and stay tropical as always.